Let's grow together. And let's welcome Reverend Martin back with his talk, Imagine That.
Are you tired of the everyday grind? Ever dream of a life of romantic adventure? Want to get away from it all? We offer you escape. Cue the dramatic music as the melodramatic voice continues. Escape, designed to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure. Now that was the opening sequence of a radio drama in the 1940s, which aired for 7 years, and it captivated the attention of the nation. And each show opened with a seemingly inescapable situation, and listeners tuned in to follow 30 minutes of high-stakes drama. In an instant, the announcer's crackling voice in Escape's opening lines pulled in millions of people, eager for a thrill-packed journey into the imagination. Now, the listeners may have lived Ozzie and Harriet lives, but for half an hour, they could see themselves as Indiana Jones. Well, you and I escape into stories every day, every week, every year. Our imaginations are always at work, creating worlds in which we're the heroes or the victims, worlds in which we experience pleasant dreams or disturbing nightmares. As I was working on this talk this week, I Googled stories about imagination, and I was surprised to see that most of what came up was how to encourage imagination in children. Now that strikes me as bizarre. I'm not sure children need any encouragement when it comes to imagination. After all, you can give a kid a toy truck with a working motor, forward and reverse, working headlights and turn signals, and he'll have more fun with the box the toy came in, because the toy just does what it does. But imagination gives the box infinite potential. So rather than encouraging imagination in children, perhaps it's we who need to reignite our capacity for imagining what could be. After all, as Picasso said, every child is an artist. The problem is remaining an artist when you grow up. And likewise, Jesus admonished us to be like little children, meaning that we should keep our minds open to the seen and unseen possibilities that are all around us. Listen to this comment. My parents, both of whom came from impoverished backgrounds and neither of whom had been to college, took the view that my overactive imagination was an amusing quirk that would never pay a mortgage or secure a pension. That was said by J.K. Rowling, the author who imagined the wizarding world of Harry Potter. The truth is that imagination, intelligently applied, has great payoffs. In J.K. Rowling's case, the payoff for imagination was a career as one of the most successful authors of all time. In science, the payoff of imagination is discovery. Unimaginative scientists don't produce radically new ideas. Successful scientists have healthy imaginations, which point the way for their experiments and their eventual conclusions. Einstein said, imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions. One of history's most inventive scientists was Nikola Tesla, who from an early age trained his powers of visualization. In his autobiography, My Inventions, he wrote, every night, and sometimes during the day, when alone, I would start out on my journeys, see new places, cities, and countries, live there, meet people, and make friendships and acquaintances. And however unbelievable, it is a fact that they were just as dear to me as those in actual life, and not a bit less intense in their manifestations. This I did constantly until I was about 17, when my thoughts turned seriously to invention. Then I observed that, to my delight, I could visualize with the greatest facility. I needed no models, drawings, or experiments. I could picture them all as real in my mind. In the arts, the payoff for imagination may be a symphony or a sculpture. In sports, it may be a home run or a touchdown. In our spiritual lives, the payoff of imagination is heaven or hell. We can go to one as surely as we can go to the other. What we imagine today will determine what we will experience tomorrow. The educational pioneer Ida Tarbell said, "Imagination is the only key to the future. Without it, none exists. With it, all things are possible." So it is that everything in the universe, large and small, is the product of imagination. Every human achievement is the product of imagination. Skis, skyscrapers, satellites, cars, cathedrals, computers, boats, boulevards, bridges, cotton balls, cardboard, coffee cups, and non-material things like philosophies, poetry, and music. They all began in the mind. Imagination, the power to create in one's mind, which happens to be the only place you can create. Einstein said that imagination is more important than knowledge. What he was saying was that knowledge can take you from point A to point B, but imagination can take you around the world and out of this world. Knowledge tells you what is. Imagination points to what can be. Imagination, being free from external limitations, can be a source of great pleasure or unnecessary suffering. Through this mental power, it is possible to experience joy during difficult times, but it's also possible to experience suffering during good times. Imagination can lead us to the fulfillment of our fondest dreams. It can also cripple us, resulting in devastating losses. People with vivid imagination sometimes suffer greatly from imagined perils. Imagination can literally produce such things as rashes and bruises, as if the imagined events had actually taken place. And if the imagination is powerful enough, a full-blown disease can result. But the creative power of mind can also lift us out of physical illnesses, and imagination can lift us out of the most dire circumstances. For example, the case of Vera Freiling, a Jewish teenager on the run from the Gestapo. She lived undercover in Berlin during the Holocaust. Determined not to let her life be dominated by fear, she kept her mind off of her horrible circumstances by imagining that she was a doctor, a psychiatrist, practicing in a free land. Well, Vera survived the Nazis and then the Soviet army, and then a bout with cancer. And then she came to the United States, where she not only fulfilled her dream of being a psychiatrist, but she became a member of the faculty of the San Francisco Medical School. And through all the horrors she endured, she imagined that she was free, healthy, and successful. It worked, because that's the way the universe works. Dr. Vera Freiling said, "Imagination can help one transcend the insults life has dealt us." Now, the more spiritually attuned we are, the freer we are to envision a better life. The more open we are to the good that's always seeking to manifest, the more surely we will rise above any challenge. We've all had the experience of being focused on a problem for days or maybe even weeks, only to have the solution appear suddenly, as if from nowhere. This happens because the solution already exists in universal mind, and when we become receptive to the solution, it pops into our consciousness. How can we deliberately focus our minds to produce better relationships, more abundance, works of art, or inventions? Well, in this teaching, we have three major tools: spiritual mind treatment, visualization, and meditation. And all three make use of the power of imagination, the ability to see what we want to see. Emile Coué, one of the pioneers of changing our circumstances by changing our consciousness, said, "Choose what you will. Choose what you will, and then let your imagination bring it to you." And science confirms that imagination is, in fact, the ultimate creative power. One dramatic example of the power of creative visualization is that of Air Force Colonel George Hall. He was a prisoner of war locked in a North Vietnamese prison for 7.5 grueling years. And every day of his imprisonment, he played a full round of golf in his mind. And every day he saw himself playing well. And shortly after being released from the POW camp, he entered the Greater New Orleans Open and shot a 76. I am not a golfer, but even I know that's a very good score. Colonel Hall explained that the real key to turning imagination into reality is acting as if the imagined scene were real and the imagined result was already accomplished. Instead of pretending it's a scene from the future, imagine it as though you're experiencing it right now. We know that whatever you truly believe, you become. And if you truly believe and imagine that you are whatever you wish to be in the now, then reality must conform. But our problem is that we tend to look at our lives through the eyes of lack and limitation, seeing only what we don't have and dwelling on that. But of course, that's also imagination at work. By focusing on lack, we extend it into the future. By dwelling on it now, we renew its lease for the future. Arnold Schwarzenegger, the 5-time Mr. Universe and the 4-time Mr. Olympia, stated this about his training: "As long as the mind can envision the fact that you can do something, you can. I visualized myself being there already, having achieved the goal already. It's mind over matter." Well, winning those bodybuilding championships was an incredible achievement, but Arnold didn't stop there. As we know, he went on to a successful movie career and then became the governor of California. You and I may never have imagined he could do that, but Arnold did. In the 1980 Olympics, the Russians conducted extensive testing of imagining techniques. They split their athletes into 4 groups. Group A used 100% traditional physical practice. Group B, 75% physical practice, and 25% of their time was spent on mental practice. Group C was split 50-50 between physical and mental practice, and Group D did 75% mental practice and only 25% physical practice. After the games were over, these world-class athletes' scores were tallied, and those in Group D, the group that did 75% mental practice and 25% physical practice, Group D had won the most medals. This knowledge that the power to imagine is more powerful than physical practice is being used everywhere, from medicine to the arts. Many famous musicians practice as often in their minds as they do with their instrument. This power may be 100% in the mind, but it's 100% real. You can prove it to yourself by taking one thing, just one thing that's very important to you, and imagining it as real in your life. Make time every day to get quiet and visualize what you want as your current reality. You have nothing to lose by employing this technique and everything to gain. Your creative abilities will blossom and flourish the more you apply this procedure to your life. But don't take my word for it. Play with the concept until it works for you. Here are a couple of other tips for igniting your creative imagination. Read more. Our minds respond so much better to what we read than what we hear. And I think that's because as we're reading, we can sort of read between the lines. That is, as our minds interpret what's written on the page, they start making connections with other bits of knowledge that we've already acquired throughout our lives. Most breakthrough inventions or concepts are really just two or more old ideas combined in a new way. And in the intersection of old information and new information, amazing things can be found. Florence Scovel Shinn, one of our early New Thought writers, used to advise her clients to learn 5 new words every day. Florence wasn't really interested in expanding their vocabulary. The idea was for them to keep expanding their field of knowledge by doing a mental workout. Several years ago, I met a man who had spent his life working in a New York City advertising agency. And I asked him where he got his ideas and what he did when he experienced a creative block. One of his techniques when he couldn't think of anything was to walk down to the corner bookstore to look at the magazines. He pointed out that you can find a magazine devoted to just about any area of interest: hobbies, fashion, sports, news, fishing, architecture, and on and on. He'd buy a magazine that covered a subject he knew nothing about and which seemed to have nothing to do with the ad he was trying to create. And he would flip through the pages, and he said invariably something would trigger an idea that he could use. And you can do the same thing when you're stumped for an answer to a problem. Immerse yourself in something new and different, and see if you don't get a flash of inspiration. And as a bonus, keeping up with new things keeps your brain sharp and your mind young. Closely related to that, be curious. This is probably why children have such good imaginations. They're curious about everything. And if we're not careful, we get jaded as we get older, and as a result, we lose a great deal of our curiosity, and we experience a lot less in the way of wonder and joy. Another idea is to see if you can't use a physical object as a way to stimulate your imagination. A number of years ago, my partner and I were living in a beautiful apartment in a wonderful complex in sort of a semi-wooded area with a little creek running through it. And one day it was announced that all the tenants had to evacuate. They were going to remodel every building, every unit, and turn them into condos, high-end condos, and so we all had to leave. Didn't really want to. We liked the place, but we had no choice. So we went looking, and we found a small townhouse gated community. And there was a unit that was vacant and was for rent or for lease. It looked into deep woods, which were protected because they were natural wetlands. That area could never be further developed. One of the things I found in the yard between the condo and the woods was a gigantic pine cone. And I took that pine cone home with me, and I put it on my bedstand. So it was the last thing I saw before I went to sleep. and the first thing I saw when I woke up. Within 2 weeks, we not only had that condo, we had it at $200 per month cheaper than what we had been paying. It was by far the nicest place we ever lived, all because of a visual imagination. There was a struggling actor and comedian who was raised in a family of blue-collar workers and who had to take a variety of blue-collar jobs himself just to keep the bills paid. And he turned his problem over to his imagination, and this was the result. One night in 1985, sitting in his old junk car overlooking the lights of Hollywood, he wrote himself a $10 million check, and in the memo he put, "For acting services rendered." He dated it 10 years in the future, and he kept it in his wallet. In November of 1995, Jim Carrey found out he had been cast in the movie Dumb and Dumber for, you guessed it, $10 million. We can think of imagination as being a spiritual practice. In fact, you can't practice spirituality without imagination. After all, faith is nothing more than believing in what you can't see. And that means you got to visualize that which is now invisible. As Henry Ward Beecher put it, faith is spiritualized imagination. Now, spiritually, imagination has at least two meanings. First of all, it's a human faculty, that part of us that deals with images and symbols and creative expression and thinking. And secondly, the imagination is an inner reality, a limitless realm, not restricted by our senses or our conscious minds, an infinite realm we can enter anytime we choose. The practice of imagination encourages us to connect with our inner power and explore the possibilities available to us. For your dream to come true, it must first be created in your imagination. And you do this by taking your eyes off of the current reality and placing yourself into the reality of whatever it is you want. And in your mind's eye, you begin to picture the experience as you want it to be. Think of it as being in a movie. You see what you want to see, you hear what you want to hear, you feel what you want to feel. You add as much detail as you can to what you're imagining as you step into the movie. And the more prominent your role in the movie, the more likely you are to manifest it on the physical plane. That is the first part of the process. Having enjoyed the starring role in your mental production, you then start to take the steps needed to manifest your dream. This is what Henry David Thoreau was talking about when he said, "If you build castles in the air, your work need not be lost. That is where they should be. Now put the foundations underneath them." Yes, we must work to fulfill our dreams. Life is not a something-for-nothing proposition. But our dreams are our God-given potential, and without them, there would be no possibility of rising to a higher level of experience. Just as imagination is not complete without work, we must be very careful about what we imagine in the first place. So many people say, "I don't have a very good imagination." And in almost every case, after speaking with them for a while, it becomes obvious they actually have a very good imagination. They just have trouble imagining something good. They have no problem whatsoever imagining something bad. So this is where our willpower comes into play. When we engage in creative visualization, affirmations, or affirmative prayer, we're not forcing something to happen through willpower. Spirit, the law of mind, the law of attraction, is the causative agent, not our will. But willpower does play an important role in manifesting our best life. And it is this: we use our willpower to keep the focus off of what we don't want not on what we and on what we do want. In other words, willpower is the guardian at the door of our consciousness, and we use the will to keep out what we don't want and let in what we do want. Ernest Holmes, writing in the Science of Mind textbook, tells us, the energy of mind, like other natural energies, already exists. We merely use it, and we have it within our power to cause it to take varying forms for us. The imagination is creative. The will is directive. Through will, we decide just what we wish to have done. The will holds attention to the mental viewpoint until the creative power has time to work through the law. But in no case does the will become creative. The will is given to protect ourselves. Nothing should be allowed to pass into the creative currents of our thought until the will has first admitted it. The will must first analyze, dissect, and then decide what it wishes the inner imagination to work on. True spiritual work will strengthen the will without exhausting the mind. If our mental work tires us, then we are using the will in the wrong way. As we should understand the proper use of the will, we should understand the true meaning of concentration. To concentrate means focusing the mental attention on some definite and desired thought, image, idea, or thing. Concentration of thought is not an effort to compel, but the desire to permit the stream of creative energy to take definite form. We concentrate our attention. The law creates the form. The moment we place thought, imagination, will, and concentration where they rightly belong in the creative process. After the intellect has made this decision, the imagination is called into play, and the game of living commences. George Bernard Shaw said much the same thing, but more succinctly, when he wrote, "Imagination is the beginning of creation. You imagine what you desire, you will what you imagine, and at last, you create what you will." I mentioned a couple of minutes ago that imagination is a spiritual activity. It is, in fact, the creative spark of Genesis. Spiritual law always acts on our imagination and turns that into our reality. Imagination and manifestation are inseparable. As Holmes put it, to imagine without the power to manifest such imagination would be to remain in a dream world which would never come to self-realization. So, let your mind run free. Imagine good things happening in your life. Imagine good things happening in the world. Imagine good things happening in this center. It's your mind, so why not use it to empower yourself and others? Viktor Frankl, who survived the atrocities of Nazi concentration camps, pointed out that in our minds, we are totally free. And that's because of imagination, which cannot be held prisoner by anything or anyone outside of ourselves. Imagination can never be destroyed. It knows no bounds. An author named Peter Zelenga put it this way: I am imagination. I can see what the eyes cannot see. I can hear what the ears cannot hear. I can feel what the heart cannot feel. Logic can tell you that you possess power. Imagination supplies the fuel. Logic can tell you that there is a better way. Imagination shines the light. Logic can tell you that there are no limits. Imagination throws open the door. Logic will get you from A to B. Imagination will take you everywhere. Enjoy the ride. Namaste. Well, We're going to do something right now that we probably should do more of. We just don't get around to it because we're all so busy. We are going to go within, into the stillness, into the quiet and clarity of the soul. So I invite you to get very comfortable in your seat. Just relax. Take a deep breath or two. Close your eyes, shut out any distractions, and let's spend these next few moments knowing the truth together. There is one life, one infinite creative intelligence, forever expressing itself as all that is. The universe is an outpicturing of the mind of God. It is spirit in form. Absolute law governs the movement of all things, just as unconditional love provides the fuel for that movement. I am a perfect idea in the mind of God. All around me, in me, through me, and as me, God expresses fully, easily, effortlessly. I am attuned to God consciousness always and in all ways. I know that this is the truth for me, as it is for everyone in this Center for Spiritual Living. My vision is clear as I live this day, full of optimism, kindness, and purpose. I allow any annoyance, judgment, or uncertainty to be released from my peaceful mind. I do not allow panic, confusion, or hysteria to distract me from the truth that all is God, and therefore all is well. I do not allow myself to become so busy that I am overwhelmed. I remember that it's okay to delegate and lighten my load. When I need help, I ask for it lovingly, knowing that I am surrounded by wise members and friends upon whom I may depend. As I mindfully and lovingly take care of myself spiritually, mentally, and physically, every detail of my day flows smoothly. As I know peace, love, and joy in myself, I raise the vibration and harmony of my family, friends, and community. Peace within, peace without, and the universe corresponds in perfect and right order. I give thanks that I'm divinely supported at all times and in all circumstances. My pathway is illumined as I personalize these words, and so I release them, knowing that they are acted upon as I have spoken, and so it is.